Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. So, we are officially starting the panel discussion. I firstly would like to welcome you all to this incredible panel discussion that we have a very diverse experts on the panel today. So, my name is Fasibin Tarek. I am going to introduce you the organization that is bringing this all together. It's Climate Forward Pakistan. So Climate for Pakistan is a youth-led organization that is dedicated to mobilizing and empowering youth in addressing the urgent challenges of climate change. It was founded with a mission of creating a sustainable and resilient future. Climate for Pakistan basically focuses on the advocacy, education, community engagement to foster climate action across Pakistan by organizing youth-led initiatives, policy dialogues, and Climate for Pakistan also provides a platform for voices there for young leaders to voice their perspectives, promote environmental justice, and drive tangible change. Operating at both national and international level, Climate for Pakistan strives to shape a future where Pakistani youth are at the center of the climate solution, from policy advocacy to grassroots action. Uh, it is my honor to introduce our lovely panel today. We have Hanna from, and my apologies if I get someone's pronunciation or someone's name wrong, because some of these names are foreign to me. So we have Hanna, who is from Finland. She's a youth delegate for climate. We have Didar, who is an indigenous youth from Gilgit-Baltistan and a project coordinator at the Climate Forward Pakistan. We have Laura, who is circularity representative of the young Icelandic environmentalists, and we have Prasun, founding member, World Food Forum Nepal chapter, Caterina, climate advocate, researcher, and consultant. She is going to moderate this session. So, Katrina, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. So, yeah, welcome to the session, and thank you very much for the organizers and the invitation to this session. Today, we want to take a look on how we can connect globally and especially building bridges between the Arctic and South Asia for a sustainable future. So, I'm very happy to be surrounded by so many wonderful panelists. And to start off, maybe as a quick start into the topic, what could lessons learned that from the Nordic countries, from the Arctic, that climate, how we can adapt to climate change and address the unique environmental challenges that we face? I'm not sure if somebody of the Nordics want to start first.
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for putting together this panel to begin with. I think in the Nordic and more widely in the Arctic region, we are very privileged in how much we are able to focus on climate change. And that means that we both have a lot of solutions to share. And that also means that we have a big responsibility to also share them and to make sure they are scalable and not just limited to the Nordic region. Because obviously, while we do have that potential to come up with these solutions, both technical solutions, policy solutions, education-wise, it's also our ambitions aren't that big, which doesn't mean we shouldn't cut back on the emissions, but it also means that kind of the biggest impact we can have in the Nordic region is by offering and supporting rest of the world as well in this transition we must face. And maybe one specific example I would like to highlight from the Arctic region is the Sami, the indigenous knowledge that we have in the Arctic, where the Sami knowledge is something we are still also working on, kind of to learn to appreciate that knowledge and how invaluable it is, because climate change, it is a natural phenomena that is just aggravated by humans, and we should appreciate that indigenous knowledge and expertise on addressing it, just in terms of justice, but also just in terms of appreciating that knowledge that can be one of the keys to addressing effectively the effects.
I think we also face some different problems, which is also important to mention, because at least in Iceland, we don't depend on our glaciers for agriculture or drinking water. We have enough groundwater for that. And so it's more like an important landscape, and of course affects the surrounding ecosystems, but also all the fresh water that's being added into the sea is affecting our sea sea currents. So, for example, the Amok, which is one of the main currents in the North Atlantic, people used to think that there was maybe like a 10 to 20% chance that it would disappear by the end of the century, which is now raised to 50 to 60%. And if that happens, we might well be climate refugees after 50 to 100 years. So there's also, and that of course is also linked to the glacier of Greenland and the melting of that glacier. So I think it's also important to realize that although we also face some similar challenges, a lot of them are also different, which makes it harder to collaborate, and which is maybe why these regions have not collaborated so much in the past. But that's why I'm really grateful for this panel today, because I think it's a really important discussion to have.
Thank you so much. So first, I think we should address the obstacles a bit later on, and first focus on the possibilities and also the shared values and the shared maybe things you face throughout the regions. Circling back to the inclusion of indigenous knowledge, and being from Sweden, the Sami population is quite big there as well, and it's also a topic that we address there, and would love to hear if also in South Asia there maybe have been more advances to include indigenous knowledge and indigenous practices in that. Maybe the Nordics can learn from that as well, so I would love to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the amazing panel. So as we are talking about the bridging the gaps between Nordic and the South Asian regions, we all are facing the similar issues because of climate change, like the melting of glaciers. We have seen that the Arctic is a kind of have a privilege as compared to the South Asian regions because the mountainous communities in the South Asia, they are politically and also economically, they are marginalized. And because of this climate change, these communities are facing very much challenges because of the climate change, especially the melting of glaciers, which for the mountainous communities in South Asia, glaciers are the source of life. It's not just the glaciers melting, but the lives of people are melting because of climate change. So by bridging the gaps, like Arctic regions are very advanced in technology, and they also have the indigenous knowledge. And in the South Asian side, we also have very close connection with the mountains. And it's not just the mountains, it's a kind of very spiritual and cultural connection with the mountains. And our grandfathers, our parents have been living with those mountains, and our livelihoods on dependence on that. And also the people, the tradition, the housing style, everything was in aligned with the nature. But nowadays, due to the anthropogenic activities, climate change has been hitting hard. So what we can do as a youth is to bridge those gaps so that we can transfer the indigenous knowledge of South with the Arctic region, and the indigenous knowledge and the technological advancements of the Arctic region can help us solve the issues faced by the people in the South Asia. For example, the Arctic regions are very advanced in early warning system, but that's the thing we are lacking in the South Asia. What we as a youth or environmental organization can do is we can collaborate and make platforms where we can share our knowledge, where we can bring people together from both the regions so that they can work together to bring more innovative ideas, and that can help us tackle the issues faced by both communities. Yeah.
Do you want to add something on this?
Hello, everyone. So talking about indigenous practices and aspects that can be shared between the Arctic and South Asia. So in case of Nepal, different kind of actions, plan of actions have been prepared. The first one would be local adaptation plan of action for different local communities, because Nepal, although it's a very small country, the geographical regions are vastly different. Like there's the Himalayas, then there's the plain Tarais, and there's the hills. So according to different land and geographical spaces, different kind of actions have been prepared. Similarly, there's a national adaptation program of action which executes as well as which looks over the local plan of action. And one of the thing that I guess Nepal is leading on or is doing for the sake of climate action would be engaging or promoting agroforestry in all of the three above mentioned geographical regions, meaning even in case of the Himalayas, there's a different kind of agroforestry that can be implemented. In case of hilly, different kind, and even in the Tarai. So in order to ensure that our all the actions from the food actions are connected with the climate actions. They have been promoting agroforestry in all aspects. So this can be something that can be learned by, or that can be implemented by the Arctic countries based on what kind of geographical situation, based on what kind of weather patterns and all of that are included or are prevalent in the particular region. So that's all.
Thank you so much. Like from the Indian perspective, do you have like similar opinions or experiences you would like to share?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Hanna from India. So I will speak in Hindi because a little bit in Urdu. They will translate. Okay. जब क्लाइमेट चेंज की बात आती है तो हम एक दूसरे पे डालते हैं कि ये हो रहा है ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो रहे हैं और आइस मेल्ट हो रहे हैं, तो उससे क्या होता है क्या होता है, कभी कभी रेनफॉल पैटर्न चेंज हो रहा है, कभी बारिश है, कभी सूखा है, तो कभी ये माहौलियाती तब्दीली नहीं, मैं समझती हूँ कि सोशल जस्टिस यानी इंसाफ का मसला है। तो हमें इस चीज के बारे में बात करनी चाहिए, क्लाइमेट चेंज के बारे में बात करनी चाहिए। इवन जब हम आर्कटिक की बात करते हैं तो पोलर आइस वो मेल्ट हो रहे हैं, तो उसके बारे में बात करते हैं, तो कभी कभी हमें लगता है कि यहाँ से रास्ते निकल रहे हैं और ऑयल और गैस का वो एक्सेस ना इजीली हो पा रहा है। लेकिन कभी कभी हमें सोचना चाहिए कि जो हमारे इकोसिस्टम है, ज्योग्राफिकल एरिया है, वो उसको बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान हो रहा है। तो हमें इस चीज़ के बारे में बात नहीं, हमें उन लोगों के बारे में बात करनी चाहिए जो इस नुकसानात को झेल रहे हैं। तो उनको ट्रेन करने की ज़रूरत है, उनको जो अचानक से जो प्रॉब्लम्स आती है और जो वेदर पैटर्न है वो चेंज होता है, उसके बारे में उनको नॉलेज देनी चाहिए, उनको पहले से ही बता देना चाहिए, उनको ट्रेन कर देना चाहिए कि ये प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है, आप सेफली अपने जो घरों को उनको मजबूत कर लीजिए। और थोड़ा पहले से जो प्री ट्रेनिंग हमको दे देनी चाहिए। और हमें सबसे पहले ज़रूरत है कि उनको नॉलेज शेयरिंग की, उनको सबसे ज़्यादा नॉलेज दी जाए, उनको उसके बारे में बताना चाहिए कि ये प्रॉब्लम्स हो सकती है, ये कि तुम्हें इस चीज़ के लिए तैयार रहना चाहिए, क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है। क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग हैं उनको क्लाइमेट चेंज के बारे में नहीं पता। इवन मैं जानती हूँ कि जो मेरा एरिया है वहाँ पे पीपल डोंट नो अबाउट क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड वो उसके बारे में जानना भी नहीं चाहते। तो मैं समझती हूँ ये बहुत खतरनाक बात है, इवन बहुत ही ज़्यादा खतरनाक बात है। हमें इस चीज़ के बारे में बात करनी चाहिए क्योंकि ये सोशल जस्टिस यानी इंसाफ का मसला है। तो हमें क्लाइमेट चेंज के लिए फाइट करनी चाहिए, उन लोगों को भी अवेयर करना चाहिए जो वहाँ पे रहे हैं, क्योंकि बहुत ज़्यादा माइग्रेशन हो रहा है और लोगों को एक घर से दूसरे घर उनको पलायन करना पड़ा है, वो घर बेघर हो रहे हैं। तो हमें उनके बारे में सोचना चाहिए। इवन गैस का और ऑयल का कोई यूज़ नहीं है जब तक हमारी हेल्थ अच्छी नहीं है और हमें अच्छा एटमॉस्फेयर नहीं मिल पा रहा है। तो वो सारी चीज़ों के बारे में हमें सोचना चाहिए। इवन हम क्योंकि इंसान ना एक लालची बनता जा रहा है, वो किसी के बारे में नहीं सोच रहा है, आने वाली जनरेशन के बारे में नहीं सोच रहा है। हम ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो रही है, ये इंसानों के लिए नहीं, जानवरों के लिए नहीं, बल्कि एनवायरमेंट पर भी इसका बहुत ज़्यादा असर पड़ रहा है। तो हमें इस चीज़ के बारे में सोचने की ज़रूरत है, लोगों को अवेयर करने की ज़रूरत है और एंगेज करने की ज़रूरत है। क्योंकि मैं समझती हूँ कि यूथ ही क्लाइमेट चेंज के अगेंस्ट फाइट बेटर वे में कर सकते हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि लोगों को, यूथ्स को इसके लिए आगे आना चाहिए।
So, just to translate there, what she said, she basically highlighted that climate change is and the melting of glaciers. It is not a problem just of something that is caused by climate change, and we shouldn't consider it just as an adverse effect, but it is a problem of social justice because the with the melting of climate change, we see that states are seeing it as an opportunity, and they are seeing it is as an opportunity because we can find oil and gas reserves in these areas, and she is basically highlighting the problem that we have to have a human centric approach when we look at this because it is damaging the people's livelihood, it is damaging people's forcing peoples to migrate, and there's a lot of it that she mentioned that came at the same dynamics of human security. So the main point she was highlighting was that we shouldn't be that opportunist when it comes to such topics, and we should be human centric in our approach.
Thank you very much. Also, thank you very much for the translation. Now moving forward, I would like to address what specific collaborative actions the Arctic and South Asia regions could take to combat climate-induced challenges, such as the mentioned glacier melts or also water scarcity that was mentioned before.
I think we might all agree that there's quite a lot of actions and quite a lot of bridges that we could build. I think to begin with, the easiest would be to maybe build bridges between those actors that might already have a strong sense of consensus. So while countries might struggle a bit more to reach consensus, I think, for example, as this panel illustrates, the youth in these countries, for example, are probably a lot more able to find consensus, as well as the scientific communities as well, maybe, who are usually, you know, all kind of on the side of science and science-based in their approaches, as well as the maybe indigenous peoples, and to join our forces in fighting for those that knowledge to be included. So in my eyes, I know that in Finland, for example, we have for scientists, we have the Finnish like climate council or a climate panel. We have for Sami people, we also recently established a Sami climate council that is for Sami knowledge specifically when it comes to climate change. And then we also have our youth climate councils. I feel like these kind of bodies and structures would be, and if there are any kind of similar ones in South Asian regions, I think building bridges between those organizations, groups, panels, whatever first, and then kind of building on from there could be kind of a good place to start.
Yeah, I will add on like this scope is a kind of opportunity for the youth to build transnational or transcultural connections. For example, our countries might have geopolitical tension. They will find difficulties in agreeing on a point, but we as the youth who are working on environmental changes, climate changes, and we are very enthusiastic and passionate about working on the environmental justice. So what I see, it's an opportunity that we, the youth, has the responsibility, and it's up our obligation that we should make these transnational connections, and we can work on issues. For example, we have a lot of organization like Climate Forward Pakistan, and there are a lot more organizations who are working in Pakistan. So we can connect with the organization in the Arctic regions. We can have a platform. We can have discussions. We can share our ideas. For example, in the northern region, we have a kind of the ice stupas, which we call the artificial glaciers. It's a kind of technique to build artificial glaciers. So it's a kind of a solution for the melting glaciers, which we, the people of the north, can share with the people of the Arctic region, so that we can share our ideas and our solution to tackle the climate change and to tackle the issue of melting glaciers. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with the power of youth and the importance of including youth, because we are the generation that is seeing firsthand glaciers disappear and will have to face the consequences. Of course, people are already facing the consequences. I just mean that we will obviously have to face increasing consequences. I also wanted to highlight two things, like citizen science is something that has been done in Iceland. There's something called the Icelandic Glaciology Society, and they do a lot of citizen science, so where experts get science from like civic society directly, or public citizens, and there's a really strong community around it, and they organize like trips both for educational and recreational purposes, and also some research trips. The other thing I would like to mention is more the theory of like the legal rights of nature, which is something that touches upon indigenous knowledge. So we in Iceland, there's this project called Kjósamjökull, where a lot of youth was involved in making Snæfellsjökull, which is a glacier in Iceland, run for president in the last presidential elections. So we used one person's, they used one person's social security number, and then they actually put it on the list of potential so people that you could vote for to become the next president. And that was like really powerful. They created a really powerful campaign around it. And it was really powerful to emphasize that, we youth want a future where like the rights of nature are respected just as much as the rights of people are, at least in Iceland. So I think things linked to the legal rights of nature are something that we could definitely collaborate on between these two regions, because this is something that's quite newly been discussed, but is increasingly happening all around the world and in different regions. So yeah.
So as mentioned by my fellow panelists, there are tons of things that can be done by the youth. Definitely, even when the topic was first, when I first came across the topic, it just felt like how are these two countries or these two part of the world related, and how can they move together? And like we do not live in a realistic world, so there is no possibility that the governments will collaborate or they will do something. So here, I think, is where youths come into play. So there's no geopolitical tension, or there's no any kind of resource competition amongst the youth, right? So all of us are here to better the world in some way or the other. So the first one of the things that I think can be worked upon would be research. A research in a sense that all of the countries are facing climate change, the impacts of climate change, and they are at the same time they are proposing and executing adaptation and mitigation practices as well, right? So as mentioned earlier, although we belong to different parts of the world, there are similar niche groups or geographical areas where similar kind of adaptation techniques, similar kind of mitigation techniques can work. So in that sense, I believe that research led by youths can be worked upon, so that at least if some sort of research is done in a collaborative way, then if the findings are shared between just 2 or 3 countries, then the knowledge, there is knowledge sharing, there is belief sharing, and at the same time there is this sort of sentiment that like if we move ahead together, it's like you will reach. If you go alone, you will reach further, but if you go together, like you will reach in a good way, right? So that can be worked upon. The next thing I believe, so I, as mentioned earlier, so I am currently engaged as the founding member and the president of World Food Forum Nepal chapter, and there we have been primarily focusing on social media and the kind of impact that social media can have, right? So even right now, even like we will just, all of us will definitely share what we did in today's session and all of that. So it will have a ripple effect, right? So maybe we can launch something as simple as like launching a campaign that basically focuses on the kind of activities done by young people, or the kind of activities done by indigenous people of a particular community, that will be helpful, right? So for example, we had launched a online SDG campaign. It was called Digo Actions. So Digo basically means sustainable in Nepali. So sustainable actions campaign, right? So there we asked our fellow members, we asked our youths to share what they were doing to make the world sustainable. So and to address which particular sustainable development goals their actions would be accelerating to achieve. So in many of them, we're talking about like reducing food waste, or using like bio oils and different other things. But most of the responses that we got, or most of the campaign content that was posted, was mostly focused on SDG 13, that is climate action. So some people of the indigenous community, I mean indigenous youth, they were sharing what kind of particular agricultural practices that their community is currently working on or is executing, so that it shows a relatively better effect, and it is helpful to adapt against the effects of climate change. So I believe that research and sharing of the research in one way, and another would be social media campaigns in which the different parts of this globe, youths of different parts of this globe can come together and share knowledge. Those two things would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, if I talk about the data, average 21.6 million globally people had migrate due to climate change over past decade, and 120 million people were displaced. It's and it's not about the past year. It's every year. It's happen every year. So मैं कहती हूँ कि जब इतना कुछ हो रहा है, तो मुझे लगता है कि जब हम ग्लोबली देखते हैं, तो हमें जो एक कंट्री का जो गैप है ना, उसको दूर करना चाहिए, आपस में बातें करनी चाहिए, दूसरी कंट्री में क्या हो रहा है, हमारी कंट्री में क्या हो रहा है, तो बहुत सारे सॉल्यूशन निकल के आएंगे। इवन मेरी कंट्री में क्या हो रहा है, हम उनको शेयर करेंगे, उनको मुझे लगता है कि शायद वो बहुत सारे इनोवेटिव आइडियाज़ लेकर आएँ ताकि सॉल्यूशन निकल पाए। तो इस सारे गैप को हमें ख़त्म करना है और ये हम सबकी लड़ाई है, क्योंकि ये एक इंटरनेशनल इशू है। तो ये मेरे देश की बात नहीं है, मेरे गाँव की बात नहीं, बल्कि इंटरनेशनल इशू है, इसमें हम सबको साथ आने की ज़रूरत है। इवन 2.2 मिलियन पीपल still live lack of access safely manage water, and 3.5 million billion people still have lack of सेफली मैनेज सैनिटेशन। सो जब हम ऐसी सारी बात करते हैं, डेटा निकल के आता है, तो हमें सोचना चाहिए कि हम सबको साथ आने की ज़रूरत है, ये हम सबकी लड़ाई है। तो हमें इस पे बात करनी चाहिए। यूथ, मुझे लगता है कि यूथ्स के पास बहुत सारे इनोवेटिव आइडियाज़ होते हैं और बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं। तो हमें ना आपस में मिलके एक कोलैबोरेशन होना चाहिए, रिलेशनशिप होनी चाहिए, ताकि हम इन मसलों पे बात कर सकें और लोगों को अवेयर कर सकें, और वो पीपल्स जो इस पे काम कर रहे हैं, यूथ्स हैं, उनको तैयार कर सके, जो कि जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं जो होने वाली हैं, वो उससे पहले से ही लोगों को अवेयर कर दिया जाए। तो मुझे लगता है कि हम सबकी ये हम सबकी लड़ाई है और हम सबको साथ आने की जरूरत है। दैट्स
So I would again translate. She basically talked about the importance of collaboration between the states, and there's this gap between between the gaps and their youth even. And she's recommending that there should be a platform where youth can exchange their innovative ideas, and it is important that the knowledge should be shared between states, so that these innovative ideas can eventually materialize into something productive, and they can mitigate or these challenges of climate change. So she is talking about the shared responsibility that we all have.
Thank you so much. And it perfectly leads into my next question. I mean, it's super inspiring and motivating to hear like what's happening in your countries, what you're working on, or what like also people's ideas and actions are. I mean, making a glacier run for president is amazing. Like, it's a very brilliant idea, at least from my perspective. But I feel like we talked a lot about what's happening in our region and our countries. And I would like to also, what you said, talk about more about how we can facilitate or empower those two regions to collaborate with each other, especially youth. I mean, we can't force our governments that easily, sadly, but we can like engage with our own like communities, networks, and then also like kind of collaborate with each other. So maybe this like side event here at COP29 could be like the first step into such collaborations, and that we could learn from each other. So I would love to hear if you have any like takes on that, maybe even ideas how we can take this discussion forward and make it into concrete steps and actions. Anybody want to start?
No, definitely. I when I got the questions for this panel, I was nervous because I was like, I don't feel like I know that much about the impacts on climate change in terms of glaciers in South Asia. Like, I know what I've learned in school and what I see on social media, but that is obviously not close to what it actually is. So definitely, like, knowledge sharing is one of the first like and very, very important steps. And also I completely agree with making some kind of like collaborative council or even just a group chat or you know, something where people start sharing knowledge on this so that we become more aware of it, and especially like less about the differences between these regions, but also, yeah, like what do we face that is similar and how can we then tackle that together. So I completely agree on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I definitely agree with a lot of the points that were already raised even before this question on like kind of potential points of collaboration. For example, like working on social media campaigns or other projects, counts, like whatever. I think just while a group chat is would be good as well. I think that way to really establish that collaboration would be to like work together and kind of to establish the similarities and the aspirations, the visions, the dreams we share by working together on them. And I think there are multiple ways we can go about them. I feel like these forums like COP and COI before COPs are so invaluable in being able to actually see face to face. And I think we should use those opportunities to kind of birth something out of them, birth these projects and collaborative events, whatever. One concrete idea that comes to mind is this in the north, again, saying that we are privileged and we have maybe a bit more like funding opportunities as well in the north, and taking advantage of them. And maybe on the point of knowledge sharing, maybe we would be able to even facilitate some sort of like exchange between the two regions, where we would actually be able to go to each other's region, actually see them in real life, which would really deepen the understanding and the collaboration. So taking advantage of this kind of Nordic funds, for example, that do fund these sort of study exchanges, for example, could be a concrete step to actually make that bridge.
And I will add, like, staying in touch with each other. For example, we are connected here in COP, so we can not wait for the upcoming COP to just get connected, but we can stay connected throughout the year, so that we can share our challenges, we can share the funding opportunities, we can share our ideas, so that we can work collectively on making an organization or a council where we can discuss ideas. And also, I think the exchange program can be very beneficial, like going to so people from the South Asia can go to the Nordic region to experience the challenges faced by the communities, and also not just experience the challenges, but see what the community has done to tackle those challenges, what are the youth engaged in, what kind of strategies are youth involved in, and then inviting those people from the Nordic region to our region, so that we can show them that what kind of indigenous practices we, the people in the South Asia, are doing to help tackle the climate change, and what are our challenges, so that we can work and make a platform where we just by talking to each other, by sharing to each other, then the knowledge exchange and the exchange programs can be a very, I can say that it will have a very ripple effect, which can help us stay connected and tackle the issue of climate change. Yeah.
Right now, all of us present in this panel are definitely representing one or the other organizations, right? So as mentioned by my fellow panelists, I think the first step that we should take right after this would be like getting connected on different forms of social media or other things. And then we will just know, like, considering that each of us belong to some organizations, we will definitely share what our organization is doing. Our organization's main work of action or main priority may not be exactly climate action, but we all definitely touch upon that subject one way or the other. So, like, connecting with each other and sharing what our organization, what each of our organization or any other initiatives, entities are taking, approaches that they are taking can be shared with each other. So that would be one space for collaboration. Other would be like something similar to this, like we can again collaborate on doing something virtual. Right now, considering that we are youths and like we may not all be very financially stable and not be able to fund ourselves for exchange program right now, that day will come, but it may not happen very soon. But for now, we can just collaborate. Again, we have all been here, we have like gotten to know each other, so the next step can be using the virtual world. So COVID-19 has gave us a lot of insight how it can be mobilized very effectively. So maybe we can all come together again under our organizers and maybe organize another kind of such a virtual event and share regarding what is happening in our countries. And we will all will go back and we will reflect on what we've said, but we'll also reflect on what our fellow panelists had said, right? So maybe we have already found some sort of common ground on which we need to speak further, or which needs to be talked deeper. So that is for now.
Okay. If I talk about my project, National Youth Climate Consortium, I'm the climate champion of Young India and the National Youth क्लाइमेट कंसोर्टियम सपोर्टेड बाय युवा यूनिसेफ। तो हमारा जो प्रोजेक्ट है उसमें बाकी जो हर स्टेट से अपने अपने स्टेट को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा है, अपने अपने स्टेट की प्रॉब्लम्स लेके आ रहा है। तो मुझे लगता है मुझे ये अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली है कि मैं बाकी लोगों से मिल पाऊँ कि जो हमारा जो प्रोजेक्ट है बाकी कंट्री से कैसे मैच करता है, कैसे हम साथ में मिलके काम कर सकते हैं। तो मुझे यहाँ पे आके लग रहा है कि सब लोग आए हैं, सब सपोर्ट करने के लिए आए, इवन काम करने के लिए आए हैं। वो जानना चाहते हैं एक दूसरे के बारे में और जो आइडियाज हैं उनको कलेक्ट करके फिर अपने प्रोजेक्ट को कैसे बेटर वे में कर सकता है। तो मुझे लगता है जो बीच में लोग आते हैं जिनके मुझे लगता है कि उनके जो माइंड का जो पॉल्यूशन है उसको दूर करना चाहिए पहले, देन सारा पॉल्यूशन ऑलरेडी खत्म हो जाएगा। तो यहाँ पे आके बहुत अच्छा लगा सबसे मिलके, और बहुत अच्छा एक प्लेटफॉर्म है जो मैं नॉलेज गेन कर रही हूँ और अपनी बात कह पा रही हूँ, लोगों से मिल पा रही हूँ। तो बहुत अच्छा लगा। ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, सब लोग अपने हैं और हम सबको साथ में मिलके काम करना। Thank you.
Uh, am I audible? So she is basically highlighting the importance of events like this COP. She is saying that uh, being from India, she has brought her local perspective and the her problems of her own local area to such a forum, and she appreciates this opportunity to meet such people. And for the youth collaboration, such platforms and access to such platforms is very important as well, so that people can talk to each other, people can share their ideas, and people can also learn from each other at such platforms. So the access, basically the South Asian countries, for people in South Asian countries, the access to such platforms is somewhat relatively difficult. She appreciates the opportunity basically.
Thank you so much. I don't want to throw a bumper in this conversation. It's very like inspiring to hear all the ideas, but I also would like to be, I don't know, honest or truthful. There might be obstacles and hurdles on the way to foster such collaboration and efforts together. So I would like, as a last question, to quickly address those and be like, okay, what's could be there to hinder such collaboration and also over like regional and international engagement, especially between youth, and how do we can overcome those hurdles? So this time maybe I can start here and then we go around the other way.
Can you explain what she said?
या सो वो ये कह रही हैं कि जब आप कोलैबोरेशन की बात करते हो तो उसके अंदर बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स भी आ जाती हैं। तो एज अ यूथ रिप्रेजेंटेटिव आपको क्या लगता है कि वो प्रॉब्लम्स क्या हैं आपके लिए, और उन प्रॉब्लम्स को कैसे आप लोग ओवरकम कर सकते हो?
जब हम साथ में यूथ्स मिलके काम करते हैं तो हमें लगता है कि मैं उससे बेटर हूँ, मैं उससे बेटर हूँ। तो ये सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है कि हमें लगता है कि मैं ही कर रहा हूँ सब कुछ। लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि हर कोई अपने फील्ड में अच्छा करा है तभी वो यहाँ तक आया है। तो किसी न किसी सबकी स्टोरी के पीछे एक बहुत बड़ी कहानी बहुत बड़ी स्टोरी हो सकती है हर इंसान के पीछे। तो मुझे लगता है कि हर एक इंसान को जरूरत है जो यहाँ पे आया है उसकी स्टोरी को ध्यान से सुने, वेदर इट इज मैं कहना चाहती हूँ कि चाहे वो बहुत ही ज्यादा एक गरीब देश से हो या फिर बहुत ही उसका जो बैकग्राउंड है बहुत वैसा हो, और मुझे लगता है कि शायद वो अपने आप को अच्छे से रिप्रेजेंट नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ, लेकिन कोई ना कोई वजह है जो वो यहाँ तक आया है। तो मुझे लगता है कि हम सबको एक दूसरे की प्रॉब्लम समझने की जरूरत है और सबको एक जैसा समझने की और सबका साथ देने की जरूरत है।
So she is basically saying that when people come to such platforms and when people work together, generally there's this notion that one is better than other. Global North, the people and organizations from Global North, they are doing some great work, and people or organizations from Global South, they are not doing they're not doing something at par. So this is something that she feels that people should respect each other. People should respect each other's stories and context, because everyone's struggle is different, and it is only when we understand and the backdrop of anyone's story, so that we appreciate and we understand their struggles, and we become more responsible toward addressing what they bring to the table.
I would like to second what my fellow panelists just said. So, as mentioned, there is this huge disparity between the global south and the global north. It may be in terms of like social aspects or economic aspects or like even day to day life basis aspect. So there's a huge disparity. In this context, I believe again the human emotions and psychology come into play. Like I being from the global south, I believe like the young people of the global north are, maybe I feel like they are getting better opportunities. Even in this very event, you may be able to see that representation from the global south is limited, right? Like it's not 50-50. We don't expect it to be exactly 50-50, but it's very less, right? So I feel like I personally feel like we are being robbed of opportunities. There's this feeling, and I may not be the proper person to see this. I mean, I've not lived in their shoes, but at the same time, the people from the global north, maybe they are feeling like we are getting this sort of opportunity, or we are being prioritized because our government in some sort of way is paying for, or it's giving financing to other people. Like, so economically, the governments of the global north, they are contributing more for the climate finance, and they're contributing more for different kind of development funds and different other kinds of fund to the global south. So it's like global north may be feeling like we are helping in the way that we can. It's more efforts need to be taken from the global south perspective. So maybe there's that. So we should not just be limited to other aspects, but as mentioned by my fellow panelists, we should focus on that the problems and the situations, the impacts that will be faced will be more like more or less similar in the whole earth. Like there will be a disparity in the kind of impact. Maybe the global south will face more floods, or it will face more any other climate disaster, but there will be other kind of and more even like similar kind of drastic natural disasters and others in the global north as well, right? So although the impacts will be different, although the kind of scenario that we face will be different, but it's it's like it needs to be focused that all of us at the end of the day will face some sort of impact. So keeping all of the other economic, social, this, that, better opportunity or this, that aspect aside, we should just all move ahead thinking that at the end of the day, we are all humans. The earth is going to make us pay for what we have been doing to them, what the human line as a whole has been doing to them, and move ahead with that mentality.
Yeah, that was very inspiring. I'm taken a bit aback. I completely agree with what you've said, and I know that I have way less knowledge on it than you do because I am in a privileged position here from the global north, and it is so important that we are aware of it. But also, the global north is majority at fault for what is going on. And that is also why I think it's so important that youth from the global north tries to be loud and tries to do a lot. And maybe sometimes that seems like then we are like getting more opportunity than this and that. And I do not agree with that. I don't think we should be getting more opportunities because we are all equals here. But I'm also thinking from that perspective, in some ways, like we should be yelling even louder at our governments because they are the ones who are at fault for what is happening. And our big corporations that sometimes, yeah, then go to the global south to like flee regulations and this and that and pollute your waters and your glaciers and, you know, your surroundings. So I think the biggest solution to tackle glaciers melting is to reduce emissions. And like, I hate that I'm saying this again and again, but like we should be reducing emissions drastically and we should be doing so now, like immediately, not in 2 years, not in 3 years. And there's no country escaping it or, oh no, it's not our responsibility because we don't actually pollute a lot, like the Nordics tend to say. So like, I think it's so important that you are sharing what you are sharing here. And it's also important that we go back home and we say, look what is going on, like look what is happening, not just in the global north. Oh, there was one flood in Spain, one flood here. There's floods every day in some of your countries. Like, just I can't emphasize enough how much empathy I have for you and how much I want I want the situation to be different. So yeah, I encourage you to continue talking and sharing what you are doing, because it really does have an impact. And for me, I'm like deeply impacted by what I'm experiencing at COP and the people that I'm talking to from different perspectives than me. And I think it's so important. So thank you.
Laura put it so perfectly. What I was also thinking during these wonderful speeches before me. Yeah, we have very different problems, and agree on the point of not knowing enough at all, and at the point of this being kind of like a starting point for a conversation, because there's so much more learning to do both ways, always, but especially I feel like from the global north, like for us to learn from the global south. But if I would dare to suggest something as kind of a solution that was maybe asked by the question prompt, would be to see these different problems we face as a sort of opportunity for collaboration. The fact that the problems we face are so different means that we should be collaborating on them, because we have different problems also means that we have different potential to solve those problems. Maybe maybe global south doesn't face a particular problem we face in the global north because you already have a solution for that, and vice versa. So I think the fact that we have such different problems, maybe we have more funding, that's something maybe that you guys don't have, and that's another potential for collaboration to effectively solve the problems. I don't think they are actually like problems of the north or problems of the south. Like, they are problems of humankind, and we should all collaborate, and the fact that they are different in this reason is a reason we need to collaborate. I think one point on maybe that's hindering the collaboration, or that might hinder the collaboration, is just the fact that because we have these problems, we're just all damn busy. This is, it's an urgent need, but this is also a lot. And we've all talked about like how it's the responsibility of the youth as well, and how it's also not only a responsibility, but maybe just something that has to happen through the youth. And we have we have a lot of stuff to do. We have a lot on our plate, and it's very unfortunate that it does fall on the youth, because we don't have the same capacity, the same resources. So we just really do need to make the most with what we've got and the resources we have. And that's why it is so important to collaborate and have these conversations from the start, and actually identify what would be the purpose for collaboration, not just like kind of collaborating for the sake of collaborating, but actually doing something meaningful and finding those meaningful points of collaboration together.
Yeah, I guess my fellow panelists has mentioned all these, and I totally agree with them. The point which I will add is like, we, the youth, has the responsibility to understand that without addressing the social inequalities in the world, we cannot achieve social justice or climate justice. The first thing is to address the social inequalities. We are talking about global north, so we have the history of colonized and the colonizer. So there is a kind of geopolitical tension. As it's our youth, is it's our responsibility that we should understand that the people in the global north were colonized by the people in the global south were colonized by the global north. And that's why there's the reason that we are seeing less opportunities for the youth of global south. And we need that collaboration, that we should bring more people from these indigenous communities, the people who have always been excluded from political scenarios, economic scenarios, and now the climate change, which has been hitting them very hard. So it's a kind of platform for us that we should, it's the chance for it's the opportunity for us to collaborate on our shared challenges, so that we can find out solutions for the challenges. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Like, it's always so inspiring and impactful to listen to all of you. And I think we couldn't have more perfect closing remarks. Unfortunately, the hour already came to an end, but I think what we can all take home from this very important conversation is we have so much like same opinions and energy, and we all fight for the same thing. Even though we come from a different corner of the world, we have different experiences or backgrounds, and also opportunities and possibilities to engage. We do have a shared understanding of the situation, and there is the wish to collaborate and to actively engage with each other, which I think is so, so important. And to what you just said at the end, I think it's never like enough to repeat that social justice, human rights, equality, and equity are the foundation to climate justice. We can't ask for climate justice without addressing those issues and addressing those thematics. And we also can't say that we want a just transition or like climate action and so ever if we do not ask for climate justice and demand it, because clearly the world leaders are not there yet to understand it. So I think that's also our role as like children and youth here on Crowded COP to really fight for it, because here we have the possibilities to engage and we have the possibilities to connect with each other and become an even stronger international movement for climate justice, which I think is very, very crucial and important. So thank you so much for like taking the time, coming here. Thank you so much for the organizers for Climate Forward Pakistan to like arrange this meeting, invite such wonderful speakers. So yeah, thank you so much. And I hope we see each other around and maybe in future projects as well.